Pramod will discuss the process of investing and buying into a new franchise business. Pramod Patel.
Thank you. Before about buying existing franchise businesses, and that's where somebody would buy an already operating store. Today I'm going to discuss buying into a franchise and opening one or more locations on your own. So again, whether you're buying existing or new, one thing that's the constant is definitely investigating and making sure you fit the franchise. So the basics are making sure you fit and qualify on their financial requirements. So there's a total net worth requirement and a liquid cash requirement. So an example would be Denny's, which is a franchise for those that don't know. To buy into and qualify for a Denny's franchise, you need at least a minimum $1 million net worth and $350,000 of liquid capital plus some restaurant experience. That's going to vary brand by brand and franchise by franchise. So some people may not qualify for, they may be able to qualify for others. Going beyond that, though, is really understanding if the franchise is a good fit for you. Most people that come to me say, oh, should I buy a Subway or a gas station? And the thing is, that's because most people are patronizing. The thing is, it needs to come back to an individual's skill set and background. So for example, there's a lot of retail franchises, which we all know and see and patronize, but there's also a lot of B2B franchises. So for example, some of you may have heard of Signorama, Fast Signs, or Instant Imprints. Those are examples of B2B franchises. And obviously we've heard of the whole plethora of retail franchises. So a quick differentiation is, if you're going to be involved in a retail business, you have to be prepared for higher turnover, longer hours, and then a big thing I'm going to get into later, which is site selection. If you go to a B2B business, you don't have retail traffic just driving by and deciding to patronize your business, but you do have more typical workday hours and also typically less turnover. So you wouldn't be necessarily hiring college age or high school kids, but people that are kind of going to be working your job for many, many years. And so to dovetail right into site selection, one of the real challenges that people find when they're buying and trying to open up a new franchise versus an existing franchise, and especially in a market here like Southern California, is space is at a big time premium. Retail space in LA, Orange County, and then the more developed parts of Riverside, San Bernardino County are at a high premium. And already right now in this market, you see landlords who are getting very pushy with their rates. So whereas a year and a half ago they might have had a few vacancies, they now are down to 1 or 2, and all of a sudden their rates may be gone from $250 a square foot to $350 a square foot. And the real challenge is, if you're opening a new franchise, you need to make sure that rate's going to be affordable. And when the rates go too high, it's just no good. So that's definitely a real big challenge that people face. And here's one example. A colleague of mine is working with a franchisee who signed up 2.5 years ago and is still looking for a space. 2.5 years. So that's 2.5 years of not making a return on their investment, 2.5 years of that investment just being essentially a sunk cost and a lot of time and energy burned up to get nowhere. But that is the nature of looking in prime retail demographics along the coast and more developed areas. Another major difference between buying an existing franchise and buying into a new franchise is if you're buying an existing location, you can do due diligence on that store. You can get financials about that store. You see exactly what that store has done the last 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. If you're buying into a new franchise, you open up a brand new location, you have no idea what's going to happen with the store that you open, because you don't even know where you're going to open it, first of all, when you first decide to sign up. So the things you can do if you're going to investigate and get into a new franchise is obviously you can still talk to other existing franchisees to see how their store is doing, what the challenges they've faced, and so what you know, and you can learn and hopefully get a little bit ahead and open your store a lot faster. Another thing that's also important when you're selecting a franchise to invest into is what are the ongoing costs. As many of you may know, franchises typically charge an ongoing royalty, and that would be a percentage of your sales. So for example, Subway is at 8% of the gross revenue is what they would collect as their sales. One thing a lot of people don't know is there are some brands and franchises that do not collect on a percentage, but just a typical or minimum fee. So as you see it on the paper I've handed out, an example would be Giorgio's Subs. It's just a flat monthly fee. So whether you do $10,000 a month or you do $50,000 a month, you're not paying more. Something else that a lot of people aren't aware of, I mean, most people are aware of royalties, but there's something that's called an ad fund. So the franchisors require franchisees to pay another percentage of their sales beyond the royalties to contribute to an advertising fund. And that's how you see Subway commercials, Pizza Hut commercials, Domino's commercials. They're not paid by corporate per se. Those are your individual store owners contributing to the fund, and the franchisor is coordinating and placing those ads. So what you've seen on the paper is that, for example, Togo's at 3% and Subway at 4.5%. So add in 8% plus 4.5%, you get a Subway franchisee paying 12.5% of their sales to the franchisor. That's before all the other costs. So it's an important thing to keep in mind. You know, a big thing that I've seen with franchisees that have been in a system for 5 or 10 years is they've seen the franchisor go through a lot of changes. So for example, we think of Burger King as a very large brand with a lot of successful franchisees, but in the early part of the 2000s, Burger King went from private to public, back to private through a private equity group acquisition. And as everybody knows, what private equity groups tend to do is they like to buy investments, keep them for 2 or 3, 4 years, grow them, and sell them off at a profit. So then they were sold again. So the people that really were suffering were the franchisees. What happens when there's a lot of transition in the franchisor, key employees come and go, and all of a sudden what happens is research and development suffers, operational management suffers, and all this leads to is that the franchisees are not getting the support they need. And it's an important thing you want to look at. So when you're investigating brands, it's not just what tastes good, what looks good, but also as an investment, which franchisor has your best interests in mind.
Thank you.